nai, 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 nai. Yai, nai, 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 nai. Yai, 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 nai, 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 nai. Yamba, nai, nai, nai. Yam nai 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 nai, yam nai 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 nai, yam nai, yai na nai 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 nai, yam nai 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 nai, yam nai 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 nai, yai nai 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 nai. Yan na na nai nai nai, yan nai 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 nai. Yum nai 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 nai, 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 yum nai 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 nai. Esai nai el heharim, me'ain yavo ezri. Esaina el heharim, me'ain yavo ezrim. Ezrim me'im Hashem, osei shamayim de'aretz. Ezrim me'im Hashem, osei shamayim de'aretz. I lift up my eyes to the mountain from where my help comes. I lift up my eyes to the mountain from where my help comes. Shalom Aleichem, welcome.
Boker Tov, everyone. Welcome to Virtual Village. My name is Sarah Elise, and I'm Wilderness Torah's Operations and Special Projects Coordinator. I'd like to welcome you all today. We're looking towards the natural world and asking, what can this time teach us? As part of awakening the earth-based traditions of Judaism, Wilderness Torah creates village life during our immersive land-based festivals such as Passover in the desert by uplifting and encouraging the individual gifts of the collective community. 4 times a week now in this virtual village, you will learn with Wilderness Torah community members who are sharing their gifts, as well as longtime stakeholders in the earth-based Judaism movement. Is there anyone who's here for the first time? I think I see everyone's faces that everyone's been here before, so that's fantastic to have you all back. We're committed to keeping Virtual Village accessible and free, as you are aware. If you would like to continue to support Wilderness Torah in this effort, we welcome any and all donations, big and small, as we endeavor to provide Jewish wisdom and community building through this hard time. Those of you who have already donated, we see you and we really appreciate you. Many of you have in this call and continue to do so. If you are new to Wilderness Torah, I would like to find out more about what we do and how to get involved. My peer Ilana will put the link to our website and donation page in the chat now. This session is being recorded and being live streamed to Facebook. We will continue to upload all of our recorded sessions on our website, so you can check back there if you've missed anything or if you want to review. And now I'm very pleased to introduce Rabbi Zelig Golden. Rabbi Zelig received rabbinic ordination from Aleph, holds a master's in Jewish studies from the Graduate Theological Union, and is co-founder and executive director of Wilderness Torah. Take it away, Z.
Thank you, Sarah Lise, and thank you everyone for being here today. Welcome, welcome. Today is a powerful, auspicious day. in Malchut Sheva Malchut, in the culmination of the Omer, full 49. And the number 49 is very powerful because 7 is powerful and it's 7 squared. So we've gone through the permutation. And in a sense, mythologically speaking, in the narrative of the Torah, or in the history of the Torah, if you see it that way, we are sitting poised at the base of the mountain. Perhaps with a raise of hands, how many of you feel like you're at that the cusp of climbing the mountain? Okay, good. Well, if you're sort of on the fence, well, this might be an opportunity to cultivate the sense. Today we are going to explore a topic very dear to my heart, which is the nature of revelation. And much of what we're going to explore today is looking into the Torah and seeing some of the ancient stories of how those who defined the biblical narrative, how they received their revelation, as well as some of the prophets. And we'll begin with a little text from one of the great masters of Jewish mysticism, as well as the Musar movement. Musar meaning the spiritual refinement of an individual being. A text from Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. Before I do that, I want to ask a quick question, and I'd love for you to use your chat or even just to raise your hands. How many of you feel like the rabbinic notion that the time of prophecy ended back then is true? That in a sense, prophecy is no longer available. How many of you agree with that understanding or subscribe to that belief? No. And Amy and Pesach and Andy and Noosh and Colin, user one, ideally, we would see you for the first 10 minutes of class at least, because we're going to do a little sharing and then you can disappear. Thank you. Good to see you all. And if you don't want to be seen, that's fine too. It's your choice, but just an invitation. So we have from Pesach saying we all might be prophets, at least for a moment. Very nice. So Moshe Chaim Luzzatto would say that there are different kinds of prophets. Some receive a revelation once in their life, and some are in that experience on an ongoing basis. There's a wide spectrum. For some, it's not prophecy, but it's revelation, meaning it's something that is revealed to us, not from the rational mind, and for a personal purpose. Whereas prophecy is something perhaps of a larger scale. Judith is saying, I'm not sure, just learning that now. And Shireen says, there are prophets now, and we may not even know who they are. Absolutely. And Jane says that our experiences of nature provide prophecy. Amen. So that concludes our class today. Wonderful to see everyone. Well, let's go into these notions, which you've actually very beautifully summarized the class in these brief statements. So I'm really excited to dive in. Let's go to the great Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. Pesach, can you read this? This is from a text called Derech Hashem, the Path to God. This is chapter 3 of his holy book on divine inspiration and prophecy.
Derech Hashem, part 3 on divine inspiration and prophecy. Regarding Holy Spirit, divine inspiration, behold that the Creator, may the One be blessed, implanted into human's nature that one can learn, understand, and be enlightened by observing various entities and their characteristics. And from what is revealed, one can contemplate and deduce that which is not revealed until one grasps it and masters it. And this is the natural way of comprehension.
Let's pause there for a moment. What is Rabbi Luzzatto saying in a summary? Anyone? that in a nutshell, humans have the capacity to figure stuff out rationally. So now we're going to go to the second sentence, because this is the second piece is what we're going to chew on. If you don't mind, Pesach, to continue.
Yep. However, the one also decreed that there be another type of comprehension that is much superior to this, and that is the comprehension that is divinely inspired. That is, that an influence from the one, may the one be blessed, comes to one through certain means that the one set up for this. And when this influence reaches one's intellect, clear knowledge of a certain thing is implanted in it. So one will know the thing completely, along with its causes and its outcomes, everything according to its level. And this matter is called Holy Spirit, Ruach HaKodesh.
All right, so perhaps reread that sentence to yourself, or go inside yourself, eyes open or eyes closed, and just consider what Moshe Chaim Luzzatto is sharing. This is a pivotal paragraph from one of his seminal works on prophecy. What is he sharing for us? I'm going to take back the screen. If Ilana or Sarah Elise wouldn't mind resharing the text sheet so everyone has the link in Safaria. You can open this up anytime and reread anything as we go. But what is Rabbi Luzzatto saying? Helene, yeah, welcome.
Okay. It's as though for me that you don't know what you don't know, and then somehow you get to know it. Even though it's like when you're learning something, you know that you don't know it, so you study it and you learn it. But this kind of revelation, I think, comes from something that you never knew you didn't know, and then you know somehow you know it. If that makes any sense.
It makes complete sense to me. Thank you. It's a powerful summary of a revelation, in the sense that there's something. And so here's the book that I'm working from. It's called Derech Hashem, The Way of God. And in Derech Hashem, we get to prophecy on page 200, and it's a 500-page book, 400-page book. And the first part of it is talking about the soul of humankind, different kinds of souls and different levels. And there's a lot that goes into Luzzatto getting to this place where he says, now there's kind of two ways to learn. One is through the rational mind, one is beyond the rational mind. And then the question is, what is he talking about? One thing we can see is that this type of comprehension is superior to just figuring things out with our brain, rational mind, number one. And number two, it comes through some non-ordinary means connected to God. And it may be, as you're saying, I think, Helene, that it's an understanding we already possess, meaning our soul came with this information in our being created process, which is a very deep understanding of the soul as it relates to being a human being. And it also may come as an instruction, not already being carried by our soul, but our soul already has an address for the capacity for receiving that information at some point in our lives. These are two different ways, and Sarah Elise is going to add a third, perhaps.
Well, this is reminding me of those situations in which I've done like guided meditations or worked with tarot, and I'm mulling over a question, but I'm not holding it super tightly. It's just kind of a thought process in my mind, and then things are kind of laid out. And there's a little bit of like, well, that should have been obvious, and I was either ignoring it or avoiding it or refusing to face it, and something comes and doesn't allow me to turn away from it. So this like soul knowing, or I almost knew I didn't know it and didn't want to know. I feel like that there's a little bit sometimes of a bit of reluctance around these revelations, which I think it, for me, has made them, when they do come, a little bit heavier of like, oh, I'm finally allowing myself to see this.
Yeah, and Luzzatto says in the second half of the second paragraph, and when this influence reaches one's intellect, meaning it's already being processed in a different part of your being, in your soul, in your heart, in your body, in the etheric realm around you, in your angelic guidance system that is ever present with you. Like there's a whole system that Luzzatto is discussing. Then clear knowledge of this thing becomes implanted, or you might say revealed. That's revelation. And now you are sure to know this thing. It can never leave your consciousness. So with this basic framework, I want to invite us to take 5 minutes. We're going to send you off in pairs. You get 2 minutes and 30 seconds each. And the question is, when have you had this experience? And what was it like? And where were you? When have you had this experience? What was it like and where were you? And share that with a chaver, a chavera, a friend in very brief sharing. We'll come back at 11:20. Ilana is setting up breakout rooms for us and do a brief share. If you don't want to be, is there anyone who does not want to go into a breakout? Is it okay for everyone to go into a breakout? Good. So everyone will go into breakout. When Ilana, are you about ready to do that? All right, so come back in 5 minutes and we'll hear a little bit, and then we're gonna take your experiences and see how they are mirrored in the prophets of the Bible. See you soon in a moment.
just the way.
Hey everyone, we're just waiting for everyone to come back from their breakout rooms and then we will resume our class. As we're waiting for Zelig to arrive back, anybody would like to share maybe some insights or something that someone shared in your breakout room that really impacted you or spoke to you?
I just want to say thank you to Haya since she's on the phone and I didn't get a chance.
Sure. Something that showed up that my awesome partner Toby mentioned was around like the interpretation of that revelation and how ostensibly our learning can be interpreted in all types of different ways. And so to some extent, like we're presented with it, but on another level, like we have the agency of now what do I do with that?
Beautiful.
I'm thinking about. Other thoughts?
Greetings. Am I back in the room? Okay, cool. Hi.
Oh, well.
Sounds like there was some sharing happening. Catch me up. Was it just you, Pesach, who shared?
Yeah, Pesach.
I can't. Yeah, I had shared something from my conversation with Toby. Should I repeat it?
Sure, briefly, yeah. Be great to
Cool,
hear.
yeah. So what she illuminated for me is the power of interpretation. So I'm just thinking about, to some extent, like we're given the revelation or it hits us over the head. And at the same time, we have the agency to determine, okay, what does this mean for me or what do I do with it? Yeah,
beautiful. And then there's the tricky navigating of how and Moshe Lazata goes into this in Derech Hashem, like how clear are we in that interpretation? How much of our rational mind are we bringing into that, and how much are we staying true to the clear knowing that is being offered to us? And that is not necessarily obvious and requires training. If this is happening, with some frequency. One thing that is true from my understanding, both in my experience, but also talking to people who deeply understand that the notion of revelation is still alive in the world, is that this is not something that is relegated to prophets. And it's not necessarily that we are all prophets, but we all have access to wisdom and understanding that comes from beyond the rational mind. And there's a whole spectrum of how we roll with that. And so I just want to lay that context. Anyone else want to share from their, what's your experience with this kind of an experience, and where were you? What was it like? David.
Yeah. I want to somehow, this is set up now in a way that I'm looking at myself as I'm talking. That's kind of distracting. I'll close my eyes. Yeah, I do and have had this sense that there is this kind of, like you said, knowing beyond the rational mind that is available like maybe perpetually available, and important and meaningful, and at the same time, it seems like whether it's the rational mind or some variation on that gets in the way so much of the time. Being able to access that, being able to receive it or value it, or let it in, understand it, be moved by it, be sensitive to it. And I guess that, like you said, requires training maybe to be able to work with that. And I wonder what that's about. And I guess maybe similar in some ways to the training that one gets when like practicing Buddhism. I'm eager to experience it more.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. So is there anyone else who's dying? Jane, I see your finger up. Share briefly, and then we're going to move into some text to see how we relate to others' experiences from the ancients.
Yeah, I just wanted to share in my conversation with Judy, we just talked about clarity, and sometimes an experience that is more than just your mind or a decision you have to make comes to you in such full clarity that it is almost like a door opens, or you see so clearly which direction to go, and you don't second guess yourself, and it's not it's a very holistic experience. So that's we just talked about clarity.
Beautiful. Yeah, and Rebbe Luzzatto speaks of this, as do many masters. They say that there is a difficulty in being able to distinguish what we think and then what is, let's say, clear revelation or at the highest level prophecy. And this is also sort of a thing we need to practice. But when it comes with clarity and there's a deep knowing that this is real, that's, and this is refining and attuning our instrument. So if it happens once in our life, we may be challenged to distinguish what is our mind from something that is like deeper knowing. But if we cultivate, then we can begin to learn when this clarity is for us to see as revelation. And Hannah is saying something beautiful, giving voice to the power of creative process in revelation. So there are many different aspects to opening the human vessel to revelation. And I'm going to take us in the direction of looking at some of the prophets and their relationship to where they were and their relationship to the natural world, hence the nature of revelation. And there are many different practices that one opens up. Chaim Luzzatto talks about contemplation, meditation, focusing in certain kinds of ways, singing and chanting, focusing on divine names and saying divine names, prayer, liturgical prayer, as well as heart-based prayer. We studied this in Hit Bodedut last time. So, pouring our heart out. Judith is talking about writing and dancing. For some it's through painting or other kinds of arts and crafts. So there is not one pathway, but I will posit that for all of the prophets, and it seems like is generally true for most human beings, that when we go to a natural context, the gates open easier. And so let's look into the Torah for some advice. So you're looking at the story of Breshit, and Vayomer Yud He Vav He El Avraham Lech Lecha Me'artzecha Mimoladecha Mibeit Avicha Al Haaretz Asher Arecha. So we are in the story of Abraham, currently Avram and Sarai, in the story of Lech Lecha. Lech Lecha can be defined as go, leave, go. And when the Torah repeats a word like this, it really means really go. And also lech, go, lecha, to yourself. So it says really go me'artzacha, from your land and away from your father's home, from your family's home, and then go to yourself. And I'm wondering if anyone would care to just briefly read this. I'm seeing Jane on my screen. Would you read the English story here?
Love to. And Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh said to Abram, leave your native land, go to yourself, and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and curse him that curses you. And all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you. Abram went forth as Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh had commanded him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. Abram took his wife Sarai and his brother's son Lot and all the wealth that they had amassed and the persons that they had acquired in Haran. And they set out for the land of Canaan. When they arrived in the land of Canaan, Abram crossed into the land to the teacher oak tree. The Canaanites were then in the land. The Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh appeared to Abram and said, I will assign this land to your offspring. And he built an altar there to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, who had appeared to him.
Thank you for that beautiful sharing. What strikes you about this story as you read it here? I'm going to put the screen back up. And I can't see you when I have when I'm sharing screen, so I'm going to have to ask you to chime in. Oh, I figured out how to do that. So I can see you now. If anyone wants to raise a hand.
Could I say something?
Please, please, please.
Okay, it's not the whole text, but something shocked me in there. They left with the persons they had purchased.
Acquired,
right?
yeah.
Now acquired, that really shocked me. It was like, did they have slaves? Did they purchase wives? I don't know. It's maybe off topic, but I must say I never noticed that before. And
yeah, so so let's address that briefly, because in a sense it is off topic. And it's striking you. So we're looking at a consciousness and a culture from probably 3,500 years ago, and having servants was very, very common, and having different kinds of relationships. Indentured servitude was very, very common, and we could stand in our 21st century place and look into that with our interpretations and our social justice lenses, and we should do that. It's essential to do. And for now, I think that would take us too far afield from this topic. And I did choose to leave it in. I could have just cut that out and just put in the lines that I have in bold, but I chose to leave the whole story in. So the story is that Abraham and Sarai are told to go, and they go, and they take everything with them. All the animals they've acquired, all the wealth, and all the people that are part of their entourage. And probably they're not slaves like we think of slaves in America, but they're servants. And that is part of building a big family in that time, whether we would do that now, which we wouldn't now. So has anyone ever seen here in line 6, it says in the Torah, Vayavor Avraham be'eretz ad makom Shem, ad alon moreh. And these words alon moreh, by the way, are never translated the way I have them translated here. Alon moreh is usually translated as the plains of Mamre or the terebinths of Mamre. You'll never see it as teacher oak tree. And so I'm wondering if that caught anyone. Sarah Elise and Pesach. So if you look at any English translation, you won't see these words teacher oak tree. It's usually the terebinth of Moreh, and Moreh is a place name. But what does Moreh mean? Moreh literally means teacher. And alone, often translated as a plain, like at the Art Scroll edition, they'll say the plain of Mamre, like a big geographical location. But alone literally means oak tree. So it'll often be terebinth, which is sort of a technical Latin word for oak tree. But it's an oak tree that teaches. So what is happening to Avram at the end of this story? The Yud He Vav appeared to Avram and said, I will assign this land to your offspring. What is happening to Avram here?
Yeah, it is notable, I think, that he had arrived to this place that he was seeking to be right when he got to this tree, the teacher oak tree.
So what is it, do you think? Leave your land, and the first place that we hear they arrive to is Alon Moreh. And then what does he experience? He experiences
A revelation.
He experiences a revelation. And this is, whether you like this revelation or you don't like this revelation, and by the way, this revelation is a pivotal revelation on the history of the Jewish people, the history of the Canaanites, the history of what becomes Israel-Palestine, and the entire political morass that we witness in the Middle East now. It hinges on this vision. So we're not going to debate whether that's a good vision or not a good vision. That's for a different meeting. But can we all agree that it is a profound revelation that Avram's having? And so what is the context where Avram has this vision, this revelation? It's at a tree. Who else in world history had like a great revelation at a tree that you can think of?
Buddha.
The Buddha, under the Bodhi tree. And if you
this
ask,
is probably myth, but I'm thinking of Isaac Newton.
Yeah, totally. No, it's also a massive revelation. Absolutely, I completely agree with you. And if you go into native lore from any continent, trees play absolutely phenomenal roles. So here, the word for tree, and I'm embarrassed, I got these backwards, but the word eitz means tree, and the word eitzah means advice or counsel. So what is the relationship between revelation and trees? How many of you, just with a raise of hands, how many of you had like a profound experience at a tree? Hands up for that. Okay, so close to half of us. That's actually, it's amazing. We spoke last time about Yochanan ben Zakkai, one of the lesser students of Hillel, being able to speak the language of trees. So there is something very deep here about trees, and Sarah Elise wants to chime in.
Yeah, I was just thinking, so what struck me actually about that was that, and then Abraham builds an altar there underneath the tree or at the tree. And and in the Talmud, it talks about no shrines under, there's shrines under every bush, every rock, and at every tree, and we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And it feels like a robbery of like, no, this is the first thing we do. This is what we do.
So this is the subject of another class that I hope to teach in the near future, and you're putting your finger on, Sarah Elise, I think one of the most critical pieces of what I would call earth-based Jewish history, which is the turning point where we saw the tree as actually evil. And without going too deep into this, this is another sort of really huge area, but it is important to say that the folk religion of the Levant ancient Israel and the Canaanites and the Sumerian Mesopotamian peoples, all who were a mixed multitude of peoples in what we now call the Middle East. The Levant is probably a better name for it, the hill country of oak trees and desert and all that. 100% without a doubt was populated by polytheistic, multi-deity worshiping people, including goddess worshiping people. And specifically when it relates to the Hebrew people, Asherah was a primary deity, and Asherah was a goddess related to trees. And the primary dominant way of worshiping was actually with altars under the trees spread all over that area. Here's a book title you'll want to read if this is very curious to you. Under Every Green Tree by Susan Ackerman. This is a seminal work. It's her, like, I think it's her PhD dissertation. A very highly technical piece of academic work, and it describes this phenomenon. So thank you, Sarah, for putting that in there. And the story goes on and on. Another great title, if this is of interest to you, is In the Wake of the Goddess: Women, Culture, and the Biblical Transformation of Pagan Myth by Tikva Frimer-Kensky. Describes this whole phenomenon of like the relation between trees and folk religion, and in particular women and goddess worshiping as the primary foundation of folk religion. But now I'm going to bring us back to where we are. So we touched on that. And I think one of the great healings that we are looking at in the Earth-Based Judaism movement isn't to return to goddess worshiping per se, but is to say that God isn't a single male deity. God is the field, the whole field, right? This is what we were talking about in Hebrew last week. It is a field that includes the entirety. And that when we go to the field, we have access, and trees in particular are access points, port keys, you might say, if you're into Harry Potter, places where we can go and we can receive advice, deeply rooted. There's a reason why we call it the tree of life, both the Torah and the Sfirot we just finished permuting, because our body is the tree of life, with our feet on the ground and our head in the sky. We are like walking trees, and the trees have what to ground us and then to open us. So trees. And Jane, I think I'm actually gonna hold off on questions. I want to touch on a couple more pieces. We're not gonna get to everything I had planned today, which is totally fine, but I want to touch on a couple more stories. Because it's not just trees. So now we're gonna look, this is a depiction of Moshe in the burning bush. And I'm not going to go deeply into the story because I taught this in an earlier class, but I will say that Moses tending the flocks of his father-in-law Yitro, a Midianite priest, in the farthest end of the wilderness, deep in the wilderness, has a revelation. The bush that is burned but not consumed, and God says after an interaction that goes back and forth, says, in the Hebrew here, Vayomer al tikrav chalom. Stop, don't come any closer. Sha'al nalecha me'al raglecha. Remove your shoes from your feet, because hamakom asher ata omed, because the place you are standing, alav adamat kodeshu, is a holy place. And there's a deeper understanding here, where remove your shoes from your feet is a literal thing, but na'al, the shoe, is also in Hebrew elak. And regel, a foot, is also a habit. So there's something about unlocking yourself from your habits, which Moshe teaches us, and the rabbis teach us again and again and again and again, happens most powerfully in the wilderness, in the natural world, that in order for us to receive this revelation, we have to unlock ourselves from our habits, especially our thinking patterns. And so the story of Moshe is deeply instructive in this way. And with that instruction, we'll go to another story. And where are we? Where can you imagine we are in the Tanakh, in the great biblical stories? Anyone want to guess who this might be a depiction of, from which prophet?
Noah?
Very good, Noach. Noach set across a sea, and this is more like a river. And so let's go and visit Ezekiel and touch into Ezekiel's story. Would somebody volunteer to read Ezekiel's story? Anyone? All right, Hannah, thank you.
Okay. Ezekiel 1:1-4. In the 13th year, on the 5th day of the 4th month, when I was in the community of exiles by the river of Already, the heavens opened, and I saw visions of God. On the 5th day of the month, it was the 5th year of the exile of King Jehoiachin. The word of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh came to the priest Ezekiel, son of Buzi, by the river of Already, and the land of the Chaldeans. And the hand of the Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh came upon him there. I looked, and lo, a stormy wind came sweeping out of the north, a huge cloud and flashing fire surrounded by a radiance, and in the center of it, in the center of the fire, a gleam as of amber.
Thank you. Now, Hannah, what is happening here? Where is Ezekiel, and what is happening to Ezekiel?
Well, it seems as though Ezekiel is by some sort of river that might actually be a river, might also be an internal space, might be both at the same time. Maybe Already for me evokes, like, in a sense, the past, but also in a sense, like, something that's final, something that's infinite, something that's already been, and so will always be.
Yes. Where do rivers go?
The ocean.
Yeah, they go to the infinite ocean. And your interpretation, as you said, it might be an actual place, a river, or it might be actually an internal experience. Like, I love that, because I think our best approach is to reflect our own intuition on what is being said here. It says, Va'ani betoch hagolah, and I'm amongst the exiles, al nahar kavar. This word kavar is key in here. And again, if you look at any Torah translation, the translation of river of Already is not the translation that you'll see in your Tanakh if you open it up. It'll usually say the river of Chebar or Kevar. So it's like a name of a place. But if you look up that word, it means already. Or sometimes it'd be like the future. So he's sitting at the river of Already, or at a river where the thing that is about to happen has already happened. And that might be an actual river of water, or it might be a state of being that is being cultivated, or, in my view, it's likely both. Meaning Ezekiel very well may have been meditating by a river, and then that river became Nahar Kavar, right? And that's why it gets its name, the river of Already. And the vision of Ezekiel is one of the most powerful visions in the Tanakh. We studied this vision in my class on the four winds, the chariots with the eagle, ox, and human faces, and lions and wings, and it's like lightning, and and then it opens up to this wild, many chaptered vision that Ezekiel brings to the people. We won't touch on the actual revelations that he receives. There are many, but the place is critical in Ezekiel. And by the way, Ezekiel becomes one of the core prophets for, our entire Heichal mystical literature. So this vision becomes the foundation of much of what we now know as Jewish mysticism. This is a beginning point, and it begins by a river. So any reflections on why a river? And Jane, I want to come back to you if your question or comment is relevant to bring it back now, please, or anyone else about Nahar Kvar and Ezekiel's vision.
I'd love to just put this out. One of the things I was thinking about was in the beginning when God says, go forth. So it was like, go to yourself, that parallel journey of going forth in the land, but also going into yourself. So that was just resonating for me. Like, what does that, okay, they found, there's the physical tree, the tree of guidance, knowledge, that he found, whatever, awakening. But then also, what is that tree, the internal tree that is being encountered, if those are parallel journeys? That was my thought.
Amen. So what is our tree? And then the corollary question would be like, what does it mean to be a tree? Deuteronomy says a human is like a tree in the field. The mystics liken our body to a tree, the different aspects of the tree of life with Keter, the crown, and Chesed and Gevura and Tiferet, and going down into Yesod and Malchut. This is the journey we just went on, was like really refining our entire being in preparation for revelation. So the tree has many aspects to it. And what is it? The river. What is a river?
I think that a river is flowing, and whereas a tree represents, even though it has many parts, it represents a sort of solidity and strength. A river can also be strong, but it flows and it changes direction, and it reminds me a little bit of what you started saying by, take your shoes off and unlock. And so it's an opening up to different things, different directions to go, and kind of being more flexible, maybe.
Thank you. Yeah, and we could riff on tree. And one, I love pointing back to the language, the ancestral language of Hebrew, and seeing what it says in its Peshat, and its literal meaning, that river, Nahar, is so close to the word for clarity or lucidity, meaning like clear thoughts or deep knowing, Nahir. And you add the yud, which is like a drop of God coming from above into the river, the word river, Nahir. Nahar, river, brings clarity. And so something about this wandering yet contained clear channel going to its final destination, which is the infinity, can bring us clarity. And of course, water, fresh water, is running through a river. And Toby, I see your hand up, and I see, no, okay. And Amy Katz, I see your hand up. We'll have a couple more comments before we close with one more powerful prophet. Amy, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just was still thinking about how you were saying that you already know it, but it comes to your intellect, and how that may be what the river of already is about. As for me, like on the revelations that I thought of, they were all things that I'd been trying to get at that all along. And then once I got to this place of seeing it and feeling it and knowing it in a bigger sense, it was really feeding me.
Amen. Thank you. Yes, it is often the case, probably usually the case, that revelation comes with something that once you realize it and it becomes here, it becomes clear and lucid for you, you're like, of course. Mm-hmm. And it's something that is simple, and it's something that endures, you cannot forget. and it is something that leads you to that which you are most yearning for in that time. So prophecy is different. It's usually about the events of the world, and some much bigger, perhaps more complicated path. But most of us have the capacity, at least, to gain revelation for ourselves. And I'm offering a few ways. Go to the wilderness and spend enough time. 4 days is my minimum to free yourself from your habitual thinking, so you can actually open yourself. Sit by a tree and ask for advice. Sit by the river, or even go into the river as a place to clarify yourself. And one last friend, if I can. Oh, I'm still sharing. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was still sharing. Haha, I thought we were seeing each other. One last friend is this image of the chariot of God, that in Elijah the prophet, "Come out," he called, "and stand on the mountain before the Creator, Yahweh." And lo, Yahweh passed by. There was a great mighty wind, splitting mountains and shattering rocks by the power of the Creator. But the Creator was not in the wind. After the wind, an earthquake shook the world, but Yahweh was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, fire, but Yahweh was not in the fire. And after the fire, after utter chaos and trembling and shaking and, then a small, still voice, Kol Demama Deka, a simple, clear voice. And so we have to get to that simple, quiet place for that simple, profound clarity. And this is Elijah the prophet in one of his moments of receiving the vision from God. And so I want to bless you on Malchut, Shem Malchut, on day 49 of the Omer accounting, after 7 weeks of permuting 7 aspects of the tree of our being. We stand at the foot of the mountain, and in this hour we shared ideas in our stories. And the reason I came to share these ideas and stories was hopefully for inspiration, for you to go into places where you find the most clarity, or the processes, perhaps creative processes, as Hannah offered earlier, where you find the opening for your revelation. So this Shavuot may be like no other Shavuot, in a time when we need each of us to find our clarity and the instructions for the path forward. So, B'shat Tova, in a good time, may you receive that which you are ready to and needing to receive.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rabbi Zelig. Hi, everyone. Alana here from the Wilderness Torah team. Want to say thank you all for being here with us today. Very grateful to be in virtual community with you all. Just want to give a heads up about some of our upcoming programming the end of this week and next week. Tomorrow on Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., we are celebrating our Earth-Based Shavuot Learning Day with Hazon, Pearlstone, and Urban Adama. And we will have a variety of all kinds of fun treats for everybody to be a part of. We have storytelling, singing. We're going to have some goats that are visiting us. We'll be doing some cheese making. And Rabbi Zelig will be leading a text study. As well as next week, we will be joined by Pesach Stadlin for Dancing in the Waters of the Unknown. And also, we are very excited to welcome in Rabbi Tirza Firestone, who will be teaching about wounds into wisdom, healing our families, and changing the world. And as well, on Thursday, we will have our weekly teaching with Rabbi Zelig on awakening our Jewish soul. And we will finish our week with Nigun singing with the Nigun Collective. You can check out on our website to see updates, as well as we are sending out a newsletter today that will have the whole schedule for our upcoming week. If you have enjoyed the virtual village with us, please consider sharing your experience with friends and family. This is a really great time to include folks from all over the globe. And invite people to our Facebook events, and all of our classes are being recorded, so feel free to check out our past ones on our website. My peer Sarah Elise will share some links in the chat, which will include a donation link. Please feel free to give us feedback. We'd love to hear ways that we can support you in connecting with one another, and ways that the virtual village can support you. And again, just huge thank you to Rabbi Zelig for your teaching, and what a beautiful way to start your day, and thinking about all the ways we will be receiving our own revelation. So I'll pass it back to you for any other closing remarks. And thank you all again for being here with us.
Thank you, and Ilana, and thank you for supporting this time and all the work you're doing behind the scenes to make this happen. You and Amalka and Sarah Elise and the whole Wilderness Torah team. It's a community endeavor, and it's a wild time we're in. And so for an organization that believes that we need to be together in real-time connection, we're doing our best to offer the medicine virtually. I hope you're getting the juice. And then take it outside. Please go be by a tree. Please go wander in the woods. Please go dip in the river, and please walk onto the mountain. Maybe this Shavuot, you find some people to go and sit by a fire and tap on a drum and ask for that deeper insight. And next week I'll be teaching this class called Wilderness in the Jewish Mind, Awakening Our Soul. So deeper look into the role of the wilderness in the formation of our peoplehood and of our soul family. So with that, we'll just close with the mountain that we are on, about to climb. Esainai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezrim me'im Hashem osei shamayim be'aretz. I lift up my eyes to the mountain from where my help comes. I lift up my eyes to the mountain we're all standing on. God willing, we will climb. Chag Sameach, everyone. Chag Sameach.
Tada, Chag Sameach.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Have a wonderful day.